You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Interview Tuesday here on the old network. Time once again for Options Insider Radio, our interview program. Indeed, the Options podcast that started it all nearly 14 years ago. Still going strong here on the network every week. My name is Mark Longo from the aforementioned network, as well as, of course, from theoptionsinsider.com. Remember, in these troubled times, we've seen a huge influx of listeners on the network. If you like what you hear, not just for this program, but for the entire network, make sure you leave reviews, comments on your platform of choice so more folks can continue to discover the network, more important than ever in these troubled times. Also, keep those questions and comments and interview guest suggestions coming in. We do love to hear from you guys here on the network. Let's see who we're going to hear from on Interview Tuesday today. I am joined on the old Options Insider Radio program by a newcomer to the show and indeed to the network. He is Tommy Martin, the head of sales strategy and operations over there at Dash Financial Technologies. Tommy, welcome to the Options Insider Radio program.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And Tommy, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the financial space, as well as what it is the head of sales strategy and operations does day-to-day at Dash.
Absolutely. And thank you again for having me on. So currently, as you had mentioned, I'm the managing director and head of sales strategy and operations at Dash. And, for those of you that may not be familiar with Dash, we're an institutional agency-only broker-dealer providing electronic routing and workflow solutions to both the buy and sell side, within the options and equity communities. And we currently account for, 15 to 16% of the OCC volume. On a day-to-day basis, I really spend my time studying the functional aspects of U.S. options market microstructure. And with that, I take it and really create products for our clients to leverage to navigate the options landscape. And I co-head the options business on a day-to-day basis. So, really from a background perspective, I studied finance and marketing at Fordham University, where I gained an interest in the markets overall. And from there, I began my career as an analyst with a firm formerly known as iPrio, but now part of IHS Markit. And I quickly pivoted over to the U.S. options industry when I took a role at the ISE, or the International Securities Exchange, which, as we know, is the first all-electronic options exchange within the space. And while I was there, I focused on growing the business by working with clients across all various business models, whether that be the largest global investment banks, the interdealer brokers, the agency desks, or the floor brokers. And the goal was really to educate on the market structure of those specific venues. And at the time, we had ISE, Gemini, and Mercury. And then from there, I joined Dash in 2015 to build out our crossing suite of tools and really grow our business relationships across existing and new clients, as well as with the U.S. option exchange community.
Well, last time we checked in with you guys over there at Dash was back in the heady days of January. It seems like a lifetime ago today. Obviously, one or two things have changed in the markets and indeed in the global landscape since the last time we chatted with Dash. So catch us up. Obviously, we witnessed historic volatility, historic volumes in the options market. We saw the U.S. options market going all electronic for the first time in its history. So many unprecedented things have unfolded since the last time we chatted with Dash, Tommy. Catch us up. What have these months really been like, and how has it impacted you guys over there at Dash?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Unprecedented times, and with COVID and seeing the floors close and, the impact that's had on market structure, it's been, an unprecedented focus really on supporting the businesses remotely. Being able to educate on market structure and the changes in market structure with the physical floor closing, but also, an importance on, volatility tools. So from the execution side, things that we've really been focusing on in terms of, our product set relative to these times are, a few things. Number one, we've really been focused on our volatility space. And I think more and more you're seeing folks depend on tools that allow you to efficiently capture vega positions through an implied vol perspective. And what does that really mean? When you have a basket of strikes that you're looking to trade across the term structure and to express your view, it's important that you have an efficient methodology to enter those, but also an algo that can go out and grab that. So we focused on our volatility suite of products holistically, including a vega basket trader as well as some delta peg based order types. In terms of, after you do your trading, you need to be able to manage your allocation processes to make things efficient for you. And especially during these times, as you're trading more, given that volumes have gone up substantially, how do you handle that? And we've really been focusing on enhancing that experience for folks through our Dash 360 platform in terms of our middle office suite of tools. So now you can integrate more seamlessly across the whole firm, right? Your front to back exercise, whether it be allocations or your middle office commissions, whatever it is. So we've been focusing on expanding that functionality for our users. And I think most importantly, and this is a core tenet really, is when you look at how the world has changed in the last, call it 6 months, something that we've focused on probably with our clients more so than ever is the very nuance of market structure. And what do I mean by that? So, what does market structure mean to you? Are you an IDB? Did you depend on the floor brokers? Are you a floor broker? Were you a bank? Are you a buy side? And more we're taking calls and educating our clients just on, how do the single leg markets operate? How do the complex markets operate? How do crossing markets operate? And what is the nuance within those markets? And we've been spending a tremendous amount of time on that. And we've had some great conversation with folks on really how to provide the best experience ultimately for their end clients through market microstructure.
What has that experience been like? Because obviously, like we said, this has been unprecedented in many different ways. The floor going away, obviously Dash hangs its hat on the electronic routing side, but you also have a floor operation, an in-person operation over there. So obviously there must have been some challenges there, of course, the volatility, the volumes. What has that experience been like for you guys over there at Dash dealing with this remotely, as well as the end user, maybe who used to be able to rely on that high-touch floor execution, and now all of a sudden, Tommy, that was gone during the craziest period we've seen in the markets in quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think from a day-to-day perspective, we think about getting up and going to the office and, logging into our PCs and either trading or doing your work, and, everything just seems to work. But imagine if you were a floor broker and the floor closed and all of your infrastructure is on the floor, your systems are on the floor, everything you do is maybe into an exchange floor system, right? Your whole world changed. So now instead of just thinking about, getting up and going into the office, you're thinking about, do I have the right internet capacity to support my systems? Do I have PCs at home that I can run a trading system from? Wow, I'm used to doing things in open outcry. How do I trade it electronically? What type of crossing mechanisms exist? So I'd say for us, we were on the front line of educating specifically really floor brokers and interdealer brokers on things that they used to do open outcry or via the floor on the tools that are available to do it electronically and what that experience might be like as they use these tools. And I'd say it was an interesting experience overall because, when you put up an electronic crossing order, it's a one and done kind of thing, right? You push go and it trades and the outcome is the outcome. And I think on the floor, you're used to having this back and forth kind of conversation a little bit when you're announcing a trade, and the interaction rate, what it might be, the touch rate. So it's definitely been an interesting experience, I think, for everyone involved. I think we've all learned a lot together. But I'd say the electronic crossing experience has been like no other that I've ever seen in working with electronic crossing tools, I'd say, for the better part of 11 years or so, where market makers are dialing up the responses, and the touch rate was, a little less than typical. And I think folks just had to adapt and understand what the new world looked like.
Last time you guys were on back in January, you were just about to launch your options ATS. Of course, we all know what unfolded subsequently there. So you can look at that through one of two lenses. You can look at it through saying that might be the best time in recorded history to launch an options ATS, or maybe the flip side of that, maybe a little bit too much of a good thing. It was a little bit too much too quickly, and it could have been problematic. So how did that unfold for you guys? How's the volume been on that options ATS since January here?
Yeah, I think, the options ATS has been a fantastic addition for us. And when you think about what happened with the floor closure relative to shifts in market structure, right, where SPX is traditionally a manual open outcry based product, and it went electronic, the ATS did allow for folks to really have that ecosystem of liquidity providers come together and electronically pair orders and find price improvement and additional liquidity, and then actually put it up as part of a crossing order type through, the CBOE's AIM mechanism. So, the ATS continues to grow for us. It continues to be a value add for our clients, whether it's the originating institutional side or the liquidity providers that are part of that tool. And I'd say it worked out to be really the optimal time to have an ATS, considering that, the world kind of went electronic, and now folks are searching for different and new ways to do things. And we certainly had something to talk about.
Dare I say it, you guys are the Peleton of the options market these days. You had a cool piece of technology, may have been interesting or intriguing before the pandemic, and all of a sudden it transformed overnight into a necessity. So what do you think? How about that? Dash, the Peleton of the options market. What do you think about that?
I think I'll have to run it by the branding crew, but it certainly sounds fun.
Hey, it's all free here, our branding advice. Take it as you will. But obviously this has been an interesting period out there. We've also seen a lot of interesting developments on the options volume front. We talk a lot with our friends over there at OIC and OCC, and they are reporting pretty much record months just about every other month out here this year. A lot of it due to the massive influx of retail trading. Obviously, institutions aren't on the sidelines as well. They're also diving in hot and heavy. We saw June was the busiest month in the history of options. We had other months vying for number 2 and number 3 out there, with July and August and September all up there in some category out there as well. Of course, we have the election looming on the horizon as well, which seems to be promising a whole lot more volatility and probably a lot more volume to come. What's this been like from an overall Dash perspective, seeing this explosion of volume across the board, not just in the traditional areas you guys like to play, like the institutional crossing side, but also on the retail side as well, Tommy? How has that impacted you guys, and has that been a surprise for you, seeing this massive explosion on the smaller end of the space?
Yeah, I think, we certainly are involved in that business line in terms of the servicing the retail broker community, from front to back. And it's definitely been, I think if you ask anybody in the industry, it's surprising to see how much it's grown and how quickly, and it absolutely has. And it's something we'll talk to, tomorrow about on the STA panel. But, it's been great. And as you said, it's grown from all different directions. And we've been able to, through our technology, support all of that from front to back seamlessly so far, knock on wood, given the growth trajectory that we've had. And, whether it's folks that are sitting at home with, not much else to do besides trade or putting on speculation relative to the election, or in terms of the technology providers and the apps that are out there, making it easier to get from idea to actual trade, which has increased or contributed to the overall increase in flow. I think either way, I think it's fantastic to see the growth in our business and our asset class, and it's encouraging to continue to see the retail folks hop into the arena.
Speaking of that panel you just teased, it is coming up this week here at the annual STA Market Structure event. Usually a great event down there in D.C. We were in person there last year. Obviously, it's going to be virtual this year, but a lot of great content, lined up. You guys can check it out over there at STA. You search for STA Market Structure Conference. You can find it for yourself. But Tommy, as you mentioned, you'll be on the Listed Options Turn Up the Volume panel. So to give our audience a little bit of insight, a little bit of the early glimpse of what you're going to be hitting on and some interesting takeaways on that session, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a couple of things that we're going to focus on, certainly, and you hit on one of them in terms of the floor closures is, I think, taking a deeper dive on, what is the impact of the floor closures across industry participants. And as you mentioned, particularly floor brokers, but the banks as well. And what is the outcome of that? What does that do to market structure? Is there anything we can learn from that? And certainly we're going to talk about the retail segment. It's on everybody's radar, right? It's a huge talking point. And we're going to take a deep dive with some interesting folks, especially the team from IMC and Jane Street there to talk about, kind of their experience within the retail segment as well during this time. And then holistically, we'll just talk about some general volume trends and what are we learning and how is the business being shaped and, what are industry participants asking for, seeing and doing in terms of reacting to kind of our new normal.
This new normal is certainly a weird one. Add to that new normal now a historic fine for JP Morgan on the spoofing side of the fence. Spoofing's been a hot topic in the futures and lesser degree in the option space, but growing there as well. Of course, market manipulation, a big topic of concern for the regulators these days. Now, for ages, we've seen people push back against spending money on things like surveillance platforms and things like that because, quite frankly, they saw it as just an expense. And they didn't really see a lot of value added to their firm by spending a lot of money on a sophisticated surveillance setup. But now, JP Morgan having a historic fine, closing in on $1 billion out there. That puts a little bit more of a realistic and perhaps exorbitant price tag on those types of failures. So I'm curious, how has that recent development, how has that impacted the RegTech side of the Dash business? Are you seeing people starting to maybe beat a path to your door saying, hey, we want to avoid something like that in our future? What are your thoughts on how that landscape has shifted recently?
Yeah, I think, that's certainly an interesting concept. On the regular technology side of our business, I think really where our focus is on regulatory capital requirements and calculations, right, with the different mandates there. So, in terms of overall surveillance of the system, I think, it's something that you meet on quarterly with your best ex committees. It's something that you're always focused on across your business and something that at Dash that we take extremely seriously. So when it comes down to surveilling, whether it be, for any of the algo products, DMA, anything that we do, it's certainly a high focus for us. So, those are things that we tackle within Dash and in terms of our surveillance department, and we do it rigorously. And then on our RegTech side, it's more focused on kind of capital requirements, and that's really where we're seeing the push on, from that part of our business.
Certainly an interesting area of the space as well. I know for a lot of the market-making firms out there, capital requirements and the onerous requirements out there, many of them would call them, I'm sure, an interesting area for them as well. Obviously, a lot has happened since last time we chatted here, Tommy. We touched on the ATS, we touched on, some of the other new initiatives, touched on the panel coming up, but outside of that, what else do you guys have up your sleeve? What else are you guys working on? What else can we look forward to coming out of Dash in the coming months, sir?
Yeah, I think, just one thing on the product side that I'll mention is something called Sensor Improve. And I think what you're seeing with the markets being wider because of the increased volatility, folks are really looking for a tool to find price improvement, find that augmented liquidity, and really do it all in a single click and have the product do, what they hope it does, which is use the spread to kind of probe the market appropriately and find that augmented liquidity and price discovery, throughout the life cycle of that order. So, something that we're excited about is our Sensor Improve algo for single legs and complex. And we're seeing tremendous traction because of the success that you can have in that type of price discovery tool. So that product's relatively new for us, and so far so good, and receiving some pretty good feedback.
Unfortunately, Tommy, that music means we've come to the end of our little sojourn here on the Options Insider Radio program. Of course, listeners, if you're intrigued, check out that panel over there coming up tomorrow, I do believe, over there at the STA Market Structure Conference. Check out the Listed Options Turn Up the Volume panel at 1:45 p.m. there tomorrow. Of course, you can check it out after the fact if you're not available at that time as well. Maybe you're looking to making it available for our listeners after the fact as well, so you guys can check it out. And Tommy, if folks are intrigued, they want to hit you guys up with questions or inquiries, they want to learn more about the ATS or any of the other things we talked about here today, where should they go? What should they do?
Sure, absolutely. Please do. Please reach out to sales@financial.com, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, whether it's products or market structure or just a conversation about the options industry. So please do send us a note, and we'd be happy to get back to you.
There you go. Check them out. Dash Financial, the place to go to learn more. And, of course, you know where to go to learn more about all things options. You're right here already. Our networks, of course, stay tuned throughout the rest of the week. Education Wednesday with Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio coming back at you on Thursday, of course, with This Week in Futures Options, our friends over there at CME and FTSE Russell, as well as the Option Block with our friends over there in NASDAQ land. Friday coming back at you, Volatility Views with our friends over there in MIAX land. We kick it all off again on Monday. A little bit more Options Bootcamp and the Crypto Rundown. Right back through to another Interview Tuesday and another episode of Options Insider Radio.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.